we're having a little adjustment of witnesses. All right, Commonwealth.
Commonwealth calls Mingle Blake.
Trying to head to the officer. This court and jury, the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you, sir. Kindly follow the officer.
Mr. Lee.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, if you wouldn't mind, could you just introduce yourself to the members of the jury and spell your first and your last name?
My name is Mingle Blake Jr.
And,
First name Mingle. Last name is Blake, Blake, Jr.
And Mr. Blake, can you tell us how old you are, sir?
Just turned 63
And
a week ago.
and what kind of work do you do, sir?
I'm a truck driver.
And how long have you been working as a truck driver?
With this company here, August will be 17 years. So.
And what state is the company that you work for located?
Florida.
The name of the company that you drive for?
Site 1 Landscape.
Site 1?
Yes.
All right. And was it known by another name several years ago?
Yes.
And what was it known by several years ago?
John Deere Landscape.
John Deere Landscaping?
Yes.
And what town in Florida or what city in Florida is that company located?
It's in Riviera Beach, Florida.
Riviera Beach, Florida?
Yes.
And that same company, have you been working all 17 years for that company under both names?
Yes.
And what kind of work does that company do?
Well, we do mostly with irrigation. We do fertilizers with landscape. We don't do the work, we just deliver the material.
And that's one of the jobs that you have, is to deliver those materials to the various work sites?
Yes.
And is it both commercial and residential work?
Right.
Is it fair to say that the offices for Site 1 are located sort of in an industrial park area?
Yes.
And has Site 1 been located in that area since you've been working for them?
No. Well, I was working for John Deere, and we moved there maybe about 8 years ago, and it just turned Site 1 maybe about 4 years ago.
The name?
Yes.
Okay, but you've been at the same location for, you'd say, about the last 8 years?
About the last 8 years.
I want to direct your attention, Mr. Blake, to February of 2013, and in particular, I want to direct your attention to February 13th of 2013. Do you remember that date, sir?
Yes, sir.
And back in February of 2013, what days of the week were you working?
I work 5 days a week, Monday through Friday.
And when you on the days that you worked, how early would you get to work?
Well, I'm supposed to be to work at 7 o'clock. I get there about 6:30.
And that's your sort of your normal routine.
Sometime I get there maybe 6:45. Yes.
And February 13th of 2013, something happened in the area near your workplace. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, well, what time did you get to work that day, if you can remember?
It could have been about 20 minutes to 7.
Now, Mr. Blake, showing you what's been admitted as 307, exhibit number 307A. First, I'm going to ask you, is this appearing on that monitor that's sitting right in front of you?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Do you recognize what's shown in 307A?
Yes.
And your workplace, that is Site 1. Well, let me ask you, do you see the chain link fence that's sort of running down the left side of that picture?
Yes, sir.
Your workplace, Site 1, is it on the left side of that fence or on the right side of the fence?
It's on the left side.
Okay, so the other side of those trees in the fence line.
Right.
All right. And the other location, the other building that's on the right side, do you know what kind of a workplace that is?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Okay. And do you see the parking lot that's shown in the lower right corner of that picture?
Right.
How big is that parking lot?
It's a big parking lot. It runs at least about maybe, I figure, about 50 yards, maybe. Yeah.
Showing you what's been received as exhibit number 310B. Do you recognize that, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in that photograph is your workplace on the other side of the chain link fence as it's shown in 310B?
Right.
And on the other side of that fence is what? Is it also a parking lot, or is it some other part of your workplace?
Well, that's what, on the other side of that is where we park our trucks, on the other side of the chain link fence.
Okay. On the morning of February 13th, Mr. Blake, can you tell us what you remember happening after you got to work in as great a detail as you can remember?
Well, I opened up the back door. I have to open the door up to get out to the trucks, to get the trucks out of the gate. And as I was going to get the trucks out of the gate, I heard a gunshot, and I ducked behind the truck.
One of your own trucks?
Right, ducked behind one of my own trucks.
Okay. Tell us what happened next.
I looked up about maybe a second after then, maybe 2 seconds. I saw a dark color SUV leave the scene.
And then what happened?
And I ran back into the office to get my supervisor, and he was running out towards me because he heard the shot too.
Okay. And your supervisor at the time was, what's his name?
Kevin Riddle.
All right. Now, you mentioned that you heard a gunshot. Have you heard gunshots fired before?
Oh, definitely, yes.
And was it clear to you that this was a gunshot as well?
Yeah, it was a gunshot.
I'm sorry, this machine's being a little finicky, so I'm trying to deal with that. You then went to go get Mr. Riddle. Redirecting your attention to exhibit number 310B, does this picture show where you were when you first heard the gunshot? Does it show the area of your workplace?
It shows the area, but it's not clear to where the trucks was because of the way the picture on this is.
All right. Can you tell from the picture whether you were further left in the picture or further right in the picture?
I was further, from this picture here, I was further right.
Okay, sort of in that direction? Or the other direction?
No, the other direction, right, yeah, right, that
Okay.
direction, yes.
Okay.
Do I take it, sir, you're on the other side of the fence?
Yes, I'm on the other side of the fence, yes.
The parking lot that we see right here, is that Site 1 or John Deere's parking lot, or is that?
No, not this parking lot here.
So that's the neighboring.
That's the neighboring yard. You see where the purple pipe at? The purple pipe
Yep, up on the racks?
on the racks? That's our yard.
And you were somewhere beyond those purple pipes?
Right, I was on, maybe about 10 to 15 feet, just further on the other side of those purple pipe.
Mr. Lee?
Thank you. The SUV that you described seeing, was it leaving the parking lot that is shown in exhibit number 310B? That is the parking lot that's not Site 1's parking lot, but the other business's
Right.
parking lot.
Yes.
And using the picture, if you can you tell us in which direction you saw the SUV leaving the parking lot?
It was going west.
Going west. Now,
Yes.
Can you tell us what direction west is by looking at this picture?
Well, west would be at the end of the picture, not that way, but the other way. Yes, that way will be west.
So in the picture, going to the right.
Yes, that would be going west.
What did you do after you heard the gunshot, saw the SUV leave, and then went to go get Mr. Riddle?
Well, after I got Mr. Riddle, I opened up the gate, and we went on the other side, what you show in the picture, and there was a dumpster over there at the time, and we looked around in the dumpster, we looked around the dumpster, and we looked. It don't show it on this picture, but it's a forklift ramp. I went on the other side of that forklift ramp to see anything. Well, nothing. I didn't see nothing.
And what were you looking for in the dumpster?
Well, gunshot, you're looking for maybe somebody that got shot or something. You know, you hear a gunshot. We just was, curious what was going on.
So up until this point, you hadn't seen any person.
No.
And you said that there was a gate. There's a gate that leads from your side of the fence to the other side of the fence?
No, the gate comes from our yard into the alley.
Into the alley.
Into the alley.
All right. And where's the alley, if you could?
The alley is from this picture here. Is on the right, on the left from this picture here.
In this direction?
Right.
Did Mr. Riddle go with you from your side of the fence to the other side of the fence?
Yes.
All right, tell us what happened when you and Mr. Riddle came from your side of the fence to the other side.
Well, that's what I was saying. We looked around, and we looked around the dumpster. We looked around the forklift ramp, and then Kevin, he went back. We didn't see nothing. I didn't see nothing at the time, and then Kevin went back into the warehouse. But I still had to get the trucks out of the yard. So as I was getting the trucks out of the yard, I see the guy staggering between the two buildings.
All right.
When
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
You say the guy, this is the first time you've seen this person?
Right.
All right.
Right.
And it was you're saying guy, was it a male?
Yes, it was the male. Yes.
When you first saw this individual, had you gone back to your side of the fence?
Yeah. When I first saw him, was taking out a truck, pulling one of the trucks out.
Now, showing you what's been marked as 307A. Do you recognize that picture?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And does that picture show the direction from which the person was coming when you first saw him?
Yes, he was coming towards, walking from out of that alley. Yes.
Is that the direction he was walking?
Right. That's the right direction he was coming out of.
When you saw him, what did you do?
Well, by the time I got out of the truck and everything, he staggered out of the alley and he fell.
And he fell down. Where did he fall down?
He fell down. You see you got like 3 blocks there. Go to that second block, right about that between the second block and the first block coming out to the alley.
Okay. So, that general area?
Come back this way a little bit.
When you say this way, which way are you talking about?
Come forward.
Mr. Lee, why don't we have the witness draw?
Sure.
Sir,
Can you place an X in the area where you saw him fall down?
Right there.
Okay. And for the record, that's directly above the Exhibit 307A sticker on 307A. Mr. Blake, what did you do when you saw this individual fall down?
Well, I asked him, I said, who shot you?
Okay. And what did the individual say to you?
He said he didn't know.
Now, was he on the ground when he said this?
Yes.
All right. What did you notice about him, if anything?
Well, when I first saw him, his hand was over his eye, and his finger was sawed off, and then I think he had a shot up around his eye.
I missed the last part. I'm sorry.
I think he was bleeding from around his eye.
Bleeding from around his
and
eye.
from his finger.
And you
Yes.
said you noticed an injury to his finger?
Yes.
Did you see any blood?
Wasn't much blood. No, I didn't see much blood.
All right. And what else did you notice about the individual other than the injuries that you just described?
That's about it.
Okay. Were you able to tell his race at all?
No, not really.
All right. Could you tell what complexion he was, what complexion his skin was?
It was a light complexion, real light complexion.
Now, at this time of the morning, Mr. Blake, was it light outside, or what were the lighting conditions outside?
I figure about if you would have gave about another 5 minutes, would have been 5 to 10 minutes, would have been light, clear light.
Clear light.
Yeah,
So-
it was sort of dark at this time, not dark, but just coming into the light.
And you're talking about the sunrise.
Right.
Did he appear to you? Did this gentleman appear to you to be disoriented in any way, or did he seem to be alert to you?
He was alert.
And did you? You said that he was on the ground when you were just first starting to talk to him. Did you end up helping him in any way?
No, I ran back. Once I asked him that question, I ran back in and got Kevin, told him to call 911.
Okay. And did 911 eventually come?
Yes, while they was coming, I was over there with him till they got there.
Were you having any further conversation with him?
I asked him the same question.
And the same question was,
Who shot you?
and what was his response?
I don't know.
And when you asked him for that second time, how was he behaving? Was he alert then?
Yeah, he was alert, and I told him I had got got 911. They was on their way to try to get him some help.
Now, did you eventually end up speaking to some detectives from Boston in connection with what you saw and did on the morning of February 13th of 2013?
Yes,
And they took a recorded statement from you?
yes.
Mr. Blake, I just want to clarify one thing. In showing you 310C, when you saw the SUV pull away, I just want to clarify, was it away from the, which I'm going to use a better picture, 307A? Was it in a direction away from that grass alley or towards it?
No, it's away from it. The alley run east and west, and it was headed west.
It was headed west. And can you just, so we're perfectly clear, draw an arrow in the direction you remember it going? Okay. And for the record, Mr. Blake has drawn an arrow that on the photograph, the point is to the right, and the back of the arrow is to the left in the picture. Thank you, Mr. Blake. I have nothing further.
Mr. Byers.
May it please the court,
Please.
Mr. Lee. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Commonwealth, Mr. Blake. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Yourself?
I'm well, sir. Well, I'm a little under the weather, but say lucky. I'm used to that Florida weather like you.
It's good
Now-
weather.
Now, let me ask you something, sir. A couple of points I just want to make. I don't have very much to add. You thought the guy was a white guy, right?
Yeah, at the time, yes.
In fact, after speaking with Kevin, that's when you realized that he was African American.
Right.
Okay. Now, you said you heard a shot, right?
Right.
And I think I've got a better view that we might be able to. Actually, I'd like to show it to Mr. Lee. Give me just a second. Yeah, just for the and mark this for identification and approach the witness.
Yeah, approach the witness.
Mr. Blake, I'm going to show you an overhead shot of the area. Tell me if you recognize it. Do you see your work area here, the alley here, the parking lot here?
No, I really can't recognize this here. I do,
Okay.
but it's overhead shot. No.
Okay. Do you see this street here, or
Okay.
the alleyway there,
Okay.
and then that coming down that way?
Okay. Yes, I see. I don't understand that now. Okay. Since I see those boats are to the west.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Is this a better? Would this help us a little bit more knowing the direction of everything?
I know those boats. What I see here is to the west of our warehouse.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this a fair and accurate representation of I guess, a satellite image of that area?
It's kind of hard for me to understand because I'm looking at here, here.
I'm not going to ask you about the top of the buildings.
Okay, right.
Just the alleyway and
Okay.
John Deere and the parking lot.
Okay. Well, only thing I can really get out of this picture here is this road, this alleyway coming through here.
Okay.
Because I've never been here, I've never been up here.
Okay.
You know.
No, I'd never say you spent time on the roof.
Right. So.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll just, when I point to that area, that's when I'll bring it up.
Right. Okay. All right.
May I?
Maybe approach your
Just for a shot. It's a problem. I won't use it.
Well,
Yes, I think this isn't the best witness to use that with.
Okay, so you said you heard a gunshot, right?
Right.
And it was pretty loud?
Yes. Yes. Because Kevin was inside the building. Yes, pretty loud. Yes.
It wasn't muffled in any way, it was pretty loud.
Not to me. It was a muff.
Okay. Now, after this gunshot, you went outside and looked around.
After the gunshot.
After hearing the gunshot,
I was already
actually,
out.
I take that back. After the gunshot, you ducked, right?
Right up behind one of the trucks.
And then about 3 or 4 seconds later, you looked around and saw a dark colored SUV.
1 to 2 seconds later, I looked up. Yes.
And that's when you saw the dark SUV heading westbound.
Right.
Now, it was a dark SUV, not a white one, right?
And it was dark colored to me. That's what it looked like to me.
Okay. And you would never say it's a white SUV, right?
No.
Okay. Now, after hearing the gunshot, you looked around and you couldn't see anything?
After here, I looked up. I saw the SUV leaving. Once I saw it leaving, I ran back in and got Kevin.
Okay. And then you guys looked around?
We opened up the gate.
Okay.
And
How
looked-
long does something like that take?
It takes about maybe within 30 seconds.
Okay. And how long to go and get Kevin?
Kevin was already headed towards me.
Okay. So then you guys came around the fence area?
Then I opened up the gate. We came around the fence area.
Okay. And that's when you started looking in like the dumpsters and things like that?
Right, just looking to see did anything happen? Yes.
Okay. And you didn't see anything at this time?
At this time, no.
Okay. And a little time goes by, right?
Maybe about Kevin goes back into the office. I pulls out the truck. As I'm pulling out the truck, I pulled it to the west to back it up along our fence in the alley.
Okay.
And that's when I saw the guy come out.
And that's when you saw the guy coming out. There's something wrong with this machine, but that's when you saw the guy coming out of this alley here.
Right.
Okay? And he walked towards you and collapsed right around here somewhere.
Right.
Okay. And after that, you said he was pretty alert.
Yes.
Okay. And when he was alert, actually, I'm showing you now 310C. Do you see this area here with some blood?
Right.
Okay. Does that look like the area where he collapsed?
Right.
Okay. And after he's there, and you asked him immediately who shot him?
Yes, I asked him who shot him.
And he said, I don't know.
He said, I don't know.
And he said that a couple of times to you, right?
Not right then. At this time, I'm going back in to get to tell Kevin to call 911 to try to get him some help.
And while you're waiting for the ambulance to arrive, a couple times,
A couple times.
and the answer stayed the same.
Same thing?
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. Now, later on, you ended up seeing when the police got there, right?
What's that?
Later on, the police arrived,
Yes.
and they started to investigate.
Right.
And when they started to investigate, they found some items of interest, right?
Yes.
To the extent the witness knows, he may answer.
And you saw them somewhere in this area here, right?
So
You saw them somewhere in this area here?
I don't understand the question.
I'm sorry, the police, when they started recovering items of interest, did you see them looking around here, this area here?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw them there, you saw they found a red hat,
Yes.
and you saw some blood.
Just, no, not, I really didn't pay no attention.
Did you see the shell casing that they found over there?
No, I didn't, no.
Okay.
The answer is no, and ladies and gentlemen, it's one of those instances where the witness's answer determines testimony and not the question.
May I have a moment, Judge?
You may.
I'm showing you what's marked Exhibit 289A. Oh boy. Okay. You see that red hat?
Yes.
Is that the red hat that you saw the police recover that day?
Yes, it looks like it.
Okay. And you stated that you didn't see any other items that were recovered, right?
No.
Now, there are quite a few, I guess, what do you call these pipes? PVC pipes, sorry. And they're on your property, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did you notice any blood on that side where the pipes were at?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And did you see the police have a considerable amount of interest in that area?
Yes, they was looking in that area. Yes.
Okay.
The objection's overruled.
Okay. And they took lots of photos of that area?
I really don't know. I know they took some. I don't know about a lot.
Okay. Do you know if that area is where they focused the most of their time, from what you saw?
No, not really. I don't think.
So, it's fair to say, sir, that after hearing the gunshot, initially when you walked down that alleyway, you didn't see the gentleman, correct?
No, we never walked down the alleyway. Not down between the buildings. No,
I guess I misspoke. When you walked out by where you're on this side of the street where the alleyway is, where you drive away, you didn't see anyone walking down this area, right? Initially.
Initially, when we first opened the gate, no, we didn't see no one.
Okay. And it wasn't until you went back in, or you actually got your truck, pulled it out.
Kevin went back in.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant back in the gate.
I had to bring the trucks out.
Okay.
And when I was bringing the truck, I went west and biked up to go back east to park the truck below the fence.
And that's when you saw him walking out of
That's
this
when I
area.
saw him coming out the alleyway.
Towards you, correct?
Right.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you, Mr. Blake. Appreciate it.
Anything further? Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Please watch your step there.
Sorry, Ron. Commonwealth calls Kevin Riddle.
Your Honor, I'm told Mr. Riddle is on his way.
All right.
You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give this court and jury and the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Can I call the officer?
Thank you.
Mr. Lee,
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, could you just introduce yourself to the members of the jury, and if you could please spell your last name?
Yes, sir. My name is Kevin Riddle. My last name is spelled Riddle.
And Mr. Riddle, could you please tell us how old you are, sir?
I am 53 years old.
And do you work?
Yes, sir, I do.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a regional sales manager for a distribution company.
And the distribution company is named what?
Now it is called Site One Landscape Supply. It
And,
went by a different name in the past.
Formerly John Deere Landscaping?
That's correct.
And the business is located in Riviera Beach, Florida, is that correct?
That's correct.
And do you know a person by the name of Mingle Blake?
Yes, I do.
And how long have you known Mr. Blake for?
15 years.
He's also an employee of Site One?
He is.
Want to direct your attention, sir, to February 13th of 2013, specifically the morning of that date. Do you remember that date and time, sir?
Yes, sir, I do.
And on that particular day, do you recall when it is that you got to work?
We arrived sometime after 6 o'clock, prior to 6:30 a.m.
And your work at Site 1 primarily requires you to be indoors, or are you out and about?
I am indoors.
And at some point after you arrived at work, do you recall something happening that caught your attention?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell the members of the jury, in as great a detail as you can remember, what happened that morning?
That morning, I was sitting at my desk approximately 6:30. Mr. Blake and I were the only two there. I was Mr. Blake's supervisor at the time. I had asked him to go back into our yard and prepare the day by moving the trucks out. He had gone out through a rear garage door, went to where the trucks were, and I heard what I thought at the time was a gunshot.
And you heard that from inside your office?
I did.
And does your office face the area of your business where the trucks were parked overnight?
Where I was sitting at the time, it did.
Okay. Tell us what you did when you heard what you thought was a gunshot.
I immediately started running towards where I knew Mr. Blake to be. He was coming towards me as I was going towards him. We met, I believe, around the doorway.
And what happened at that point?
Mr. Blake told me that he heard a gunshot and saw an SUV fleeing from the scene.
And at this point, where were you in relation? Are you familiar with the chain link fence that borders one side of your business?
Yes, I am.
All right. And where were you in relation to that fence?
About 80 feet east of that, pretty much in parallel to it, but about 80 feet east of it.
What did you do at that point?
We slowly walked back towards where we had heard the gunshot come, where I'd heard the gunshot come from, and he saw the SUV, to look and see if we could find somebody that needed help or if there was anything there. We walked out of our back gate, walked onto the adjacent property where the SUV had been. We searched the area, including the dumpster, around behind the dumpster, and at that time I said to Mr. Blake that I thought maybe it was just a backfire, and I went back to my desk.
Okay. Just to take you back, to your best memory, how many gunshots did you hear in total?
One.
And you mentioned, as you were telling us what you did, that you and Mr. Blake went in the direction of where you thought the gunshot was coming from. Where was the place where you thought the gunshot was coming from?
It was in the rear of the property that was just to the west of our building.
I want to show you exhibit number 307A, which should appear on the monitor.
Yes, sir.
In front of you. And do you recognize what's shown in that picture?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And when you say the rear of the building next to you, what are you talking about?
On the right side of that picture, as I'm facing it, is our next door neighbor, the business that's next door to us. That is the north side of that building, which is the rear end, the back side of the building that's up against the alley.
Okay. So that part of the building abuts that parking lot?
That's correct.
And when you went from your side of the fence to the other side of the fence, does that picture show where it is you crossed over into their property?
No, it does not.
Okay, so it would be further down towards, out of the picture's view, but towards me, for instance.
Lower left.
Lower left.
Yeah, be lower left of that picture.
Okay. So when you crossed over onto the other property, did you and Mr. Blake look together, or did you split up?
No, we looked together.
All right. And how long did you do that for, roughly?
Just a few minutes.
What areas did you go around to look?
We went down that little grassy area there towards the air conditioner units. We looked there. To the right of this photo, there is a dumpster that's inside of a, I believe it's inside of a little concrete type retaining area. We looked in there, we looked around the dumpster, and then we stopped looking. We were pretty convinced at that point that there was nothing more to it than just the noise.
What did you do at that point?
I went back to my desk. Mingle started preparing for the day. Mr. Blake started preparing for the day.
What was the next thing you remember happening?
About the time my rear hit my seat, Mingle was coming back in and said, "Now there's a person."
What did you do at that point?
Grabbed my phone and ran out to where the person was.
And when you saw that person for the first time, where was he?
He was lying in the parking lot where we had just searched.
And redirecting your attention back to 307A, does that show the general area where the person was when you came out for the second time?
No, sir.
Okay. Showing you exhibit number 310B, does that show the general area
Yes,
where?
sir.
Okay. And where on that picture, the screen that's in front of you has a, if you just put your finger to the screen, you should actually draw on it. Could you, okay. All right, for the record, Your Honor, Mr. Riddle has drawn a circle around the, what appears to be RBS on the ground in exhibit number 310B. And that's the area where you saw the individual on the ground?
That's correct.
And tell us what you remember about that person in as great a detail as you can remember.
He was lying on the ground in the fetal position. I can't remember right this minute which way he was facing, although I believe he was facing towards the alleyway, which would be away from the building. I had another one of my employees running. I was on the phone with 911. They asked me to stop the bleeding as best I could. He was bleeding from his hand and from his head. And I had another employee run back, and other employees were starting to show up. So I had another employee run back in to grab as many first aid kits as they could.
Now, during the time that you were interacting with him, that is, well, let me back up. When 911 told you to help stop the bleeding, did you actually try to administer some first aid?
Yes.
All right, and what did you do?
Just tried to I put rubber gloves on and just tried to hold something on the wound. I don't even recall what it was.
Do you recall how much he was bleeding?
Profusely.
All right. And when you, did he appear to have blood on his shirt?
I don't recall.
All right. When you say profusely, where did you see the blood going?
Around his head.
Around his head?
Yes.
On the ground around his head or
Yes.
on his head?
No, around on the ground. I can't say that I recall seeing it on his head.
All right. During the time that you were help or attempting to stop the bleeding, did you interact with him in any way?
I did at the urging of the 911 operator.
All right, and that involved speaking to him?
It did.
And do you remember making any observations about how alert he was, whether he was very alert, not very alert?
Surprisingly alert.
And was able to hold a conversation with you at the time?
He was.
And at some point, was Mr. Blake there with you?
I can't recall. I was focused on what I was doing, so I can't tell you if he was within a step or two or back onto the alleyway. People had started gathering in the alleyway, and I can't answer that.
And just yes or no,
Hold
did
on
you?
one second. When you say the alleyway, sir, what are you referencing?
On the bottom left-hand portion of this picture is an alley that runs between two sets of buildings.
Is that depicted at all in this photo?
It is not.
All right. There's been reference to that grassy strip
That is not
beside the building
Yeah, that's-
as an alleyway, but that is not what you're referencing.
No, there is a physical roadway between these buildings and the buildings behind them. There is a concrete physical road that runs between them, and that's what I'm referring to.
And is that where your trucks would enter and exit out of your yard too?
That's exactly correct.
And as to this parking lot that we see in the photograph, would that open onto the so-called alleyway or the roadway?
Yes, the only difference would be our property is fenced and that property is not.
Okay. Mr. Lee, continue.
And just yes or no, did you have any conversations with the injured male regarding what had happened to him?
Yes,
All right. And what conversation did you have with him about what had happened to him?
I asked him his name, again, at the urging of the 911 operator.
Was he able to provide a name?
He was.
And what was the name that he provided, if you can remember?
Alexander Bradley.
And what else did you have to say with Mr. Bradley, or what
The
else?
911 operator asked me if I would ask him if he knew who shot him.
Okay. And did you do so?
I did.
And do you remember what Mr. Bradley's response was?
It was, no, I do not.
At some point, did 911 at the scene?
They did.
All right. And I'm sorry, you hesitated a little bit. Was there something that took place in between?
Yes, there was.
Okay, and tell us about that.
911 kept urging me to ask him who shot him. And the second time I asked him if he knew who shot him, he said, I don't want to talk anymore. I'm going to bleed out.
And when he said, I don't want to talk anymore, I'm going to bleed out, how would you compare his condition at that time to when you first told us that he seemed remarkably alert to you?
Still remarkably alert.
At some point after that conversation or that exchange with this individual, Mr. Bradley, did 911 come to the scene?
They did.
All right. And what did you do at that point?
Separated myself from the area.
When you separated yourself from that area, did you go back inside the office or did you hang around outside?
Hung around outside.
Did you speak to, strike that, did any police officers arrive at the scene?
Yes, they
and
did.
Did you have some conversation with the police officers?
Not the initial police officers that showed up, the uniformed officers, I did not. When the detectives showed up, I did.
How long did you remain outside?
It was an active crime scene for probably 3 hours. I probably stayed out there most of that.
And again, just yes or no, did you have an opportunity to watch what the police were doing, or for that matter, were you paying attention to what they were doing?
No, I really was not paying attention to what they were doing. It was more conversation around, there was press there at that time, trying to get interviews, there was a lot of distractions for me, so no, I was not paying attention to the police work.
And you said that you initially did not have any conversation with uniformed officers, but later did. When you say later, are you talking about days later or sometime later on that same day?
While it was still an active crime scene.
So on that same day?
Yes.
And those people that you did eventually speak to, were they detectives?
Yes. I'm assuming they were detectives.
Okay. Were they in plain clothes?
Yes.
Now, at some point, did you have the opportunity to talk to some detectives from the Boston Police Department in connection with what you saw and did on the morning of February 13th?
I did.
All right. And did you give an audio tape statement to them as part of an interview of what took place?
Yes, sir.
First witness, Sean?
You may.
Mr. Riddle, showing you those two pictures, do you recognize what's shown there?
I do, yes.
Okay. And with respect to the first picture, what's shown in that first picture?
The alleyway. This would be facing north. The building, this would be the parking lot where the victim eventually was found, but
Okay.
facing north away from the building.
Away from the building. So the photograph would be taken with the perspective of your back to your neighboring building, looking
That's correct.
at the alleyway.
Yes, sir.
basically. Is that a fair and accurate representation of that viewpoint?
Yes, sir.
And if I could refer you now to the second picture, can you tell us what's shown in that second picture?
That would be looking from east to west of the north side of the building where the victim was.
All right. And is that a fair and accurate representation of that viewpoint?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd offer those as the next two exhibits.
Without objection received, is that 360? We mark them A and B.
Showing you what's been received as exhibit number 316A. You recognize that?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what you described as the alleyway?
That is the alleyway that runs between the buildings, between our property and the properties that are just north of us, yes.
All right. And can you just take your finger and make a mark on what you're describing as the alleyway? Okay. And for the record, Mr. Riddle's drawn a straight line across the middle of the photograph in the roadway that is in the sunlight. And showing you what's been received is exhibit number 316. That's looking west, is that correct?
That's correct.
Just to orient ourselves, if you were to look left in this picture, that is in that direction, is that the direction where the grass area was?
Yes.
Meaning the area that's shown right here?
That's correct.
Okay. In 316B, at some point when you were looking around initially, right after you heard the gunshots and you went over to that side to look, did you ever look near a dumpster?
Yes, we did.
All right, and is a dumpster visible in that picture?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Again, could you make a mark for us showing us where the dumpsters were? For the record, that is the dumpster that's in the left portion of 316B. Thank you, Mr. Riddle.
Mr. Baez.
Good afternoon, Mr. Riddle. I just have a couple of follow-ups, shouldn't be too much. Actually, I think I have a better view for you. May I have a witness, Judge?
You may certainly.
I'm going to show you a photograph and you can tell me if you think it's an overhead of the area we've been discussing.
Yes, it is.
Is that a fair and accurate representation?
Absolutely.
Okay, may I have this marked as an exhibit, Your Honor?
You may.
Your Honor, may we approach this briefly on that?
Yeah.
Actually, just for identification, I won't enter it as an exhibit. Is that better?
Are you gonna publish it?
Yeah.
I just want to be heard on that.
Sidebar. Dean.
17.
What is 3?
316A and B are photos.
What?
316A and B are photos.
And this is the next item.
Yes. 17.
Correct.
Apologize, Mr. Riddle. Let me just get this squared away.
Yes, sir.
How to get the whole thing? I want it zoomed out.
Zoomed out.
Yeah, yeah.
This is new for me, so I don't know.
You're going in. I need out. Yeah. That.
Right there.
Right there. Oh. Right there. Oh, no, that's not going to work.
I'll hold it.
All right, wait. A little more. There, perfect.
Okay.
With the help of my assistant here, I think we got this good to go.
Don't touch a thing.
All right. The touch screen, the screen that you have is a touch screen.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure, you mentioned that when you came outside, you went down this alleyway?
No, sir.
Okay, you went that way.
We went out at the rear of our property, which is a property on the lower right-hand corner. There's an open gate on the rear as you're facing north, I'm sorry. On the rear left, there's an open gate there. We exited through that gate.
You can draw, you can touch.
We went through this gate this way, came down the alleyway and around this way.
Okay, and when you came around, did you see anybody in that grassy area? This right here?
No, sir, we walked down that grassy area. There was no one in that grassy area.
Okay, so no one at all.
There was no one in that grassy area whatsoever.
And that grassy area is, just so we're clear, actually that's a bad view. That area, right?
That's correct. We walked down that, we walked
Go
through
ahead,
that
use
area
your-
there.
Use your.
I'm sorry,
finger
yeah,
there.
we walked, we came around, we looked in the parking lot, and then we walked into here, and then back this way, and back into our gate.
And you didn't see anyone,
There was no one there.
okay? Now, you noticed a area over here near a fence,
That's correct.
correct? And were there some items there? I guess this is a better view. Right around here. Did you notice any items there?
We did not look closely in that area. Any items that were there, we overlooked as garbage.
Okay. Later on, when the police arrived, did you see them recovering certain items there?
I did. I came to learn later there was a hat recovered there.
Okay. Did you know that there was a shell casing there?
I did not.
Okay. Did you see any blood over there?
After the fact.
Okay. And did you see blood on the PVC pipes on your side of the fence?
After the fact.
Okay. Now, when Boston came down to speak with you, that was just a couple months ago, right?
That's correct.
And you were trying to direct their attention to this area, right?
I was,
Okay. And why?
because there was blood splatter on our pipe.
Okay. And what were you trying to tell them about that area?
That's where I thought the shooting happened.
Okay. And did they cut you off?
I didn't feel like they did.
Okay. Did they tell you they didn't want your opinions or anything like that?
No.
Okay. So they were nice to you?
They're very cordial, yes.
Perfect. Okay. How long would you say you guys were looking for during your search?
Minutes, 3, 4, 5 minutes,
Okay.
tops.
So between 3 and 5 minutes, that would be a fair estimate?
I think so, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
if I said something otherwise at the time, I would go with what I said earlier, but as I sit here, that's what I recall.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Lee, anything further?
This is a better.
Mr. Riddle, Mr. Baez asked you a question about whether you directed the attention of the police to the blood on the PVC piping.
Correct.
All right, and you did that because that's where you felt the shooting took place?
That's correct.
All right, now, when the shooting did take place, you were inside, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And it's fair to say you actually couldn't see what was taking place?
That's correct.
And would it be fair to say that your conclusion that the shooting took place over there was based solely on the fact that there was blood over there?
Oh, that is absolutely correct. I just surmised that.
Okay, great, thank you.
You used your deductive reasoning, right?
I,
Sustained.
You built that conclusion because you saw the blood spatter on the pipes?
I did.
Okay. You also saw a hat that had some blood on it there?
After I saw the detectives, the detectives marked it, I did not see that. I did not see the blood splatter nor the hat prior to the detectives doing their investigation.
Right. And you mentioned you were inside to Mr. Lee, right?
That's correct.
You heard that gunshot loud and clear, right?
I did.
It wasn't muffled in any way.
It was not.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Riddle, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse, please watch your step. All right, let me see counsel at sidebar. I'm going to suspend the testimony now, and I'm going to suspend the testimony until Monday morning. You get tomorrow off. A couple of days ago, one of the attorneys developed a cold. Hopefully it's just a cold. But he then, or she, I shouldn't name who the attorney is, but they then started to share that cold. And it has gone down both counsel table, it has hit the clerk, and soon will be hitting me, I suspect. It better not hit any of you. But given that we are at the communicative stage of that cold or flu, I'm going to declare this a germ-free environment between now and Monday, and hope feeling up to par Monday morning such that we can proceed expeditiously. The last thing I want is whatever this bug is to get beyond that rail and have you folks begin to feel ill. And the best way to avoid that is simply not to sit tomorrow, and obviously we're not sitting Saturday or Sunday. So we're going to suspend until Monday. I don't view this as setting the case back significantly. We are close to on the time track that we had discussed when you all first came in. So don't worry too much about that. Put the case out of your mind for a long weekend and plan to be with us Monday morning at 9 a.m. And as you know by now, between now and Monday morning, don't discuss the case. Don't read, hear, or see anything about the case. Don't attempt to learn anything about this case in any way. Simply put it out of your mind. Enjoy the weekend. We'll see you Monday morning. And for heaven's sake, stay healthy. Jurors may be excused.
And was out alone, and that the other players came out.
Then the rest of the team left with him. Mr. Diaz does not know what the altercation was about.
He does, but that would be hearsay.
Well,
As
he
far
was told, escort him out. He went downstairs. He did not see anything occurring downstairs.
see anything, but
he
he was
escorted
told.
Mr. Hernandez out, and Mr. Hernandez was not happy about being thrown out of the club.
Correct.
Is that
That's
right?
accurate.
And Mr. Diaz then said, and I don't think he was allowed in after that. Does that have any bearing on when this particular incident would have occurred?
No, Your Honor, because we have no evidence that he was not allowed in at any time after that.
And what is the relevance of this?
The relevance, Your Honor, is simply an example of Mr. Hernandez at Club Cure acting aggressively and, again, being what the Commonwealth would describe
Well,
as...
being upset at being thrown out.
Well,
That's the only relevant other act, isn't it?
perhaps, Your Honor, but there's one nuance that I think Mr.
You were not seeking to introduce this to demonstrate that there was some incident downstairs that Mr. Diaz did not see.
No.
So it's Mr. Diaz saying, I'm a bouncer. I told Mr. Hernandez to leave for reasons unknown to all, and he gave me some lip or attitude.
Well, it's a little more nuanced than that, Your Honor.
All
I
right,
think the
tell me what
Commonwealth's
more.
point is that if the court were to hear from Mr. Diaz, what he would say is he prides himself on being extremely polite with individuals. He doesn't consider himself a bouncer in that respect of never really putting his hand on anybody, being very respectful, just simply ushering them out, again, in a respectful manner in which 90% of the time no one gives him a problem. The Commonwealth contends that this is an example, again, of Mr. Hernandez when somebody's doing something that to the regular person who is in those circumstances would not cause them to get upset. Mr. Hernandez overreacted with Mr. Diaz and again challenged him to a fight when Mr. Diaz was simply and politely escorting him out of the club.
He was tossing him out. He was bouncing him.
But that's the nuance, Your Honor, that again, if you...
Mr. Diaz is going to say that most people I throw out are cooperative?
I think Mr. Diaz would quibble with Your Honor's term of throw out, that he prides himself on not actually physically throwing anyone out, but simply
encouraging them to leave and getting them to basically leave on their own. So
All right.
again, it's very verbal.
Does the defense have a position on the proffered testimony of Mr. Diaz?
Yes, Your Honor, that the witness should be stricken, that the testimony amounts to an attack on Mr. Hernandez's character or lifestyle or personal history and risks diverting trier of fact's attention away from pertinent issues in this case. I think Your Honor's description is accurate. At best, it shows that Mr. Hernandez, taken in light most favorable to the Commonwealth, objected to being thrown out, and that strikes me, Your Honor, as not probative to any material issue in this case.
Assessing the proffered probative value of his testimony, assessing the ambiguities in that testimony insofar as the context of events would not be fully presented, it appears to me that the proffered testimony is of minimal probative value, and the potential for unfair prejudice exceeds that probative purpose. I will exclude the testimony of Mr. Diaz, or not allow it as other act evidence. As to Mr. London, what is it the Commonwealth is seeking to present with regard to Mr. London?
With regard to Mr. London, Your Honor, the Commonwealth is seeking to present first the evidence that Mr. London and Mr. Hernandez developed what could be described as a friendship leading into 2012. The friendship was based upon Mr. London being a promoter at the clubs, the VIP host at the clubs, getting to know Mr. Hernandez, and helping him as he went to clubs, both Club Cure, Club Venue, and Club Rumor. Again, developing a friendship that included text messages, frequent phone calls, the fact that Mr. London even met family and friends of the defendant, Aaron Hernandez. From that background, Mr. London would be expected to testify that at or around July 16th of 2012, that everything changed with his relationship with Mr. Hernandez, that Mr. Hernandez suddenly became different in the clubs, that Mr. London in particular observed verbal altercations that Mr. Hernandez had with other patrons. He actually witnessed this. And then for him personally, he describes an incident that he believes happened shortly before July 16, 2012, where he approached Mr. Hernandez to tend to him and others, as he typically would, at some type of VIP table. And at that point, Mr. Hernandez allegedly lashed out at him, called him a fed, a snitch, told him that he couldn't be trusted, words to that effect, and then directed, ironically, as it turns out, Alexander Bradley, who Mr. London was able to identify from subsequent media attention or coverage, directed Mr. Bradley to walk Mr. London away from him, and essentially went to the car with him.
Give that to me again. Who is it that directed Mr. Bradley to walk London away?
The defendant.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yes. And
the timeline is that the instant where Mr. Hernandez made an accusation against London was before July 16?
Well, Mr. London is a little bit unclear whether it's before or after. Similar to Mr. Diaz, Mr. London suggesting that based upon what he sees in the video from July 16, 2012, and the fact that he doesn't walk Mr. Hernandez down and simply seems to point downstairs, he believes it could have been at that point because their relationship completely soured after that incident. That being said, I think the incident would be equally probative if it were afterwards, because it would corroborate what Mr. Bradley said as far as the increasing level of paranoia, or whatever way Mr. Bradley described it, where Mr. Hernandez believed that people were not to be trusted and were feds and those types of things. So in either regard...
Well, yes, but Mr. Bradley's related that to the shooting itself.
Right.
That Mr. Hernandez became somewhat paranoid of law enforcement or perceive law enforcement as a result of the shooting, is what the Commonwealth is suggesting.
Correct.
What Bradley is contending. So if Mr. London said I was accused of being a fed or a snitch or something like that after July 16, it would have corroborative value. What value does it have if it occurs before July 16?
Well, again, Mr. London's not sure whether it occurred before or after, so again, but if it occurred before, it would be evidence that Mr. Bradley had previously talked about, where increasingly leading into July of 2012, Mr. Hernandez took what would be, to most people, innocent gestures, whether being looked at or just acted to in a certain way, and believed that people were out to get him or thought he was soft or trying or testing him. And that this is a situation, again, where you have an individual who's just simply coming up to him and asking him how he can be helped, and he's lashing out and accusing him of being a snitch or a fed. So again, it's corroborating Mr. Bradley's testimony of the Commonwealth suggests is state of mind evidence, motive evidence, as to Mr. Hernandez's increasing angst when he goes to the nightclubs and believing that people are out to do him some harm.
And just to remind me how that evening concluded. Mr. London is saying that he and Bradley walked out over to the parking lot, got some cigars, chatted, and then what?
And then Mr. London went back into the club, and from that point on, he and Mr. Hernandez's relationship was strictly business.
Well, do I take it that Mr. Bradley went back in the club as
Yes, Mr.
well?
Bradley went back in the club.
And Mr. Hernandez had stayed with the club?
Correct.
All right.
And the third incident, Your Honor, was witnessed. We do have a better time frame on this. Mr. London suggests that it was sometime shortly after the Patriots lost the AFC Championship to the Baltimore Ravens, which was in early February of 2013, that Mr. London was present in Club Cure when Mr. Hernandez was approached by a promoter who Mr. London knew, that Mr. London overheard the conversation and the interaction with Mr. Hernandez, where the promoter essentially made a statement to the effect to Mr. Hernandez that, oh, you just played the Baltimore Ravens. I actually went to UMass Amherst with a former player for UMass Amherst named Hedebo, who previously played for the Patriots and now at that point was playing for the Ravens, to which Mr. London heard Mr. Hernandez say words to the effect of F the Ravens, and then physically smacked the promoter in the face.
And I saw some reference in London's grand jury testimony as to that being a friendly smack or unfriendly.
Mr. London certainly thought it was unfriendly.
All right. And anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Sullivan.
So why don't we start there, Your Honor, with respect to any testimony from this witness. It's collateral, it's extraneous, and it would tend to divert the jury from the real issues of the case. This is a prime example of being forced to engage in a trial within a trial to contest these extraneous issues. So first, with respect to this promoter and the Ravens, what the Commonwealth did not tell you is that the promoter was interviewed and said to the effect that no, this didn't happen. I remember,
I'm sorry, said what?
No, this didn't happen. I would remember if Aaron Hernandez slapped me. So now we have to go get some third party saying I saw something that the individual who allegedly experienced it didn't see, and we'd be forced to bring someone in, the actual individual, to impeach the declarant about that issue. Again, creating a trial within a trial. As to Mr. London himself, Your Honor, the very predicates that the Commonwealth relies on are demonstrably contestable. In Mr. London's first interview, the detective asked him explicitly if he has had a social relationship with Aaron beyond what the job requires. Answer, no. Never been to Aaron's house or private parties. Aaron never has gone to his house. No social relationship. So this notion that they were close friends, texting and buddy and so forth, and then things ominously changed are contradicted by Mr. London's original statements. Again, forcing us to have a trial within a trial to contest these premises.
Meaning what? That he would say here that he had been to Mr. Hernandez's house?
No, that he had, well, the Commonwealth proffered that he would testify that they were friends. Commonwealth's words, that they had a social relationship. We would contest that. And one of the things we would rebut that with is this witness's own interview with the detectives. Yeah, and that's with respect to the Bristol matter. In terms of the number two, and this is the fed or the snitch, I think Your Honor's question with respect to the time frame is sufficient to exclude that testimony. That's just one ground, that is the ambiguity of the time frame. Your Honor rightly states that it's wholly irrelevant if it happens at one point.
Well, it's irrelevant to the claim that it would demonstrate paranoia about law enforcement.
Correct.
If indeed it occurred before July 16.
Correct.
But the Commonwealth is arguing that it also shows, I suppose, Mr. Hernandez's antipathy to being singled out or tested or tried, so-called.
Well, I'm not sure how that works, and I think Your Honor struggled to find vocabulary to give voice to whatever the...
Trying to recall what it was the Commonwealth had said.
Well,
but I think that was the point.
And that point is tenuous at best. It's extraneous. There's nothing about, it's not related to being tried to think someone is a fed or a snitch. That's a descriptive state about somebody's profession or disposition. Doesn't have anything to do with someone trying Mr. Hernandez. We suggest that it is the sort of bad act evidence that the law seeks to keep out, because it either says more about Mr. Hernandez's character generally, or is too remote, removed, or extraneous to be allowed in this trial because of the likelihood of prejudicing the jury. There is little to no probative value of testimony that Mr. Hernandez says someone is a fed or a snitch. That within and of itself says very little, except that it would invite the jury to, once again, pile inference on top of inference on top of inference to get to a conclusion that the government wants. And I will say that the law and the jurisdiction is clear that bad acts, even when nominally offered to show motive, the mimic rules, or any legitimate purpose, can become dangerously confusing to the jury. And Massachusetts courts urges judges to proceed with caution, particularly when they are piled on or unduly exaggerated. And this seems to be a case where either this individual is exaggerating because there's so much contradictory evidence, or it's an instance where this is a piling on of bad acts that, in effect, or functionally reflect on Mr. Hernandez's character, which is
All right.
improper.
Got it. I will allow London to testify. It seems there is a good deal London can say that will corroborate other aspects of this case, such as that the club would treat athletes and celebrities differently than other members of the public, that Mr. Hernandez was a frequent attendee to the club and known by club personnel. In that sense, he corroborates other aspects of the testimony in this case. As to the specific other acts that are sought to be presented, I'm going to reserve on that and rule Monday morning. I've just been given his grand jury testimony, and I want to read that with greater care. Mr. Sullivan, you're referencing other reports or statements that would contradict that. And if you think they have some bearing on the exercise of my discretion, then why don't you submit them to Mr. Sheehan before you leave today?
Yes.
I'll be happy to look at anything you want me to look at for either side as it bears on the scope of Mr. London's testimony. And I do think sequencing is important here. In terms of when this incident may have occurred in relation to the July 16, 2012 shooting. The Commonwealth is telling me whether it's before or after. It is not remote in time because it's maybe 30 days before, but not much longer. Is that right?
That is right, Your Honor. And additionally, I think I should clarify, and Your Honor will tell when you look at page 13 and 14 of the grand jury, Mr. London's not sure. He's basically saying it's right around that time. And he says, I honestly don't remember if it was before or after. It could have been before because I didn't walk him down, but I really don't know.
You didn't greet him on the video the way I would normally greet an athlete.
True.
Is that essentially what he's saying?
True, but he also acknowledged when looking at the video, he also appears to be on the phone, he being Mr. London. So again, I think the most accurate version of his testimony, I think as it would come in, short of objections, would be he can definitely say it's within a few-week period or a week or two period of when the incident happened, of July 16, 2012.
All right. Mr. Sullivan, offer up whatever you want me to look at over the weekend. And counsel, I spoke to you about estimating when we might put this case to the jury. Mr. Byers, Mr. Sullivan, do you have a view about when that might be?
We expect our case to go a week, Your Honor. No more than that.
So we'd be looking at possibly the end of the first week of April, that is the 6th or 7th. Does that sound about right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Then we will be adjourned. Do we have anything else?
We do have some other motions in limine. Of course, doesn't have to address them today. I think we can, but definitely before the end of next week, obviously, as we may rest.
Why don't we take them up Monday? All right. Thank you all.